Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Pop Anime Comics here from PopAnimeComics.com and the Pop Anime Comics Lounge podcast. So check both those out if you're interested in articles relating to anime comics and pop culture, as well as interviews with voice actors, comic artists, writers, cosplayers, and professional wrestlers. So I'm going to be talking about Gundam, the new Gundam movie. So Gundam's been around for 40 years, in case you've been sleeping at the wheel. And so for their 40th anniversary, they decided to make a movie. And that movie came out on November 30th, 2018 in Japan, and the US version came out on February 19th, 2019, which is the recording of this video, and that movie is Mobile Suit Gundam Narrative or Mobile Suit Gundam NT. And so it's kind of a new retelling. It frames things from the entire UC universe, goes back to 79, goes back to 87, goes back a little bit in between, kind of highlights some events that were taking place while other things were going on. So it has relevance to UC, and it takes place in 0097, 1 year after Gundam Unicorn. And so the story is simple. So the Gundam Unicorn and the Banshee Gundam, or the Black Lion Gundam, have been sealed away. So they haven't been destroyed, as people were told, but they've been sealed away. But there's a third one, and that is the Gundam Phoenix. It's the 03, and they're hunting for it because that Gundam can control time. And it's this concept of controlling time and reversing time and going beyond death, and almost achieving immortality and living eternally. And so what you wind up having is you have the Earth Federation, in particular Lucenco, and then you have the remnants of the Sleeves with Neon Zeon going after the Phoenix, trying to obtain it because they both want its power. And due to that is a whole conflict. And then we get some other stuff going on. And we get some new type stuff going on. And I don't want to get into too much of the details because I don't want to ruin it if you haven't seen it. But that's the premise of this movie, is dealing with this concept of death and playing around with new types and all that. So this is my take on it. I love Gundam. I love a lot of Gundam. I'm wearing a Gundam shirt. I mean, I have the RX on my shirt in a very Japanese style, almost like tattoo style, a traditional style. This is what's on my shirt. Really cool shirt, by the way. But this is my take on it. It didn't feel like a Gundam to me. Like Gundam in the UC with 079 and Warren Pocket and the OFMS team and 083 and Zeta and Double Z, and even Char's Counterattack, and even F91, and even Gundam Unicorn, which is a bit different than the rest of those, they all felt like there was a war going on. They all felt like there was a legitimate conflict, especially the first major three. So what is dubbed as the trilogy, Gundam, Zeta, and then Char's Counterattack, there's a legit conflict going on in those three works. And then the others, the OVAs, and even Gundam Unicorn, there's a legit conflict. In this, I felt like the conflict was forced. And I felt like they were hunting the Phoenix, but there was no give or anything. And it's a year after, and we're kind of thrown into these three miracle children. And the stuff that they were experiencing and depicting, and the fact that they went back to 79 and then went to 87, that's all cool. And it's good that we get their context with all that. But again, there was like no conflict with this. And even the conflict that was there, it felt more of a sci-fi. It didn't feel like, it felt like they were going into new types and we had this new type connection, and it felt a little bit over the top with that new type connection and how the Phoenix is controlled legitimately by one of the Miracle Children's like core and soul, and that it really doesn't have a pilot. And it just felt like, why are they looking for this? And then the way the ending happened, in many ways, it felt like it was all for nothing, and that things were achieved or lack of achieved all for nothing. And so I'm viewing this and I'm saying to myself, this is 40 years of Gundam, and the thing that kicked Gundam off was this human interaction with the new types and this you're not alone concept and the consequences of war and the human aspects of war, along with really well done strategy and really the first time robots that look like humans to some degree fighting each other, and that there are real consequences of war and that there's twists and turns in war. And then Zeta builds upon that, and even Char's counterattack really ends that position. And then we have other things like Double Z does a lot of that, and even outside of this entire UC conflict, we get that with Wing, and we get that with G Gundam to some degree. We even get that with Iron Blood Orphans and Gundam 00, which really modernizes this Gundam and makes, children's soldiers relevant, which is something that's relevant in today's society, especially in the continent of Africa, in several countries that are right now going through brutal civil wars. The Congo is one of them, Boko Haram in Chad and Nigeria and things like that. And those are real issues that are taking place, and partially in the Middle East as well. And so that's all taking place, and for them to have a movie that feels forced, and it feels more like a Robotech, shot. It feels like Macross, to be honest, where Macross does that music stuff and it has that culture shock stuff, and that's what this felt like to me. It did not feel like a Gundam. The animation was beautiful. The Gundams were cool. I mean, the Phoenix Gundam, it's not my favorite thing, but it looks sort of cool. And even the narrative Gundam looks pretty sweet. I mean, that Gundam looks like an awesome Gundam. And the other mobile suits. But it didn't feel like a Gundam. It felt more like a sci-fi. It felt like Macross or Macross Plus, because Macross tends to use a lot of music. And it tends to use a lot of music as a weapon. And that's what it felt like with the new type stuff. And so I liked the movie. I just didn't think it was their best product. And I felt that in many regards it was somewhat of a letdown. Because here you have the war, the human conflict, the new type stuff, and you really had a nice balance to what kicked this off 40 years ago. And here we go, and we kind of, I don't want to say they half-assed it, but they kind of stepped outside of their box. I mean, this is coming off the heels of Thunderbolts and the heels of Iron-Blooded Orphans, IBO. And so that's something that I think they kind of dropped the ball a little bit. And even coming off of the tail of Unicorn, I mean, Unicorn was different, and it had more of a Macross feel, but it still had that Gundam feel. This didn't have that Gundam feel. This had too much new type stuff in it, and too much sci-fi, and not enough war, which is what brought Gundam to where it is. And that's what a Gundam is. It's a war anime. It's a conflict between typically 2-3 groups that have a difference of an opinion. I mean, the entire setup of Gundam is that you have wealthy people on Earth and you have impoverished people up in space, and they're not liking that, and they're not liking it on Earth, and they want to fight. And that was the entire point of Gundam. And then you have a mixture, and then obviously Zeta is that Earth won the war, and now the Earth Federation is a dictator, and that they're kind of imposing their power. So you have two conflicting forces with this. The conflicting force is Neon Zeon kind of becomes corrupt for no real good reason, except the fact that one of their pilots who kills everybody and then jumps into a cycle frame didn't like being called underrated or useless. For lack of a better word, not to spoil anything, but that to me isn't like a reason. That's not a jumping reason to me to really punch in your 40th year and say this is our project, and this is our 40th year of staying relevant and actually staying at the top of the mecha franchise and arguably the anime franchise, because there isn't a franchise that is like Gundam that has produced so much work and so much hype and has had fans from at least 4 different generations, if not 6 or 7 at this point. And they're constantly bringing in new fans who are then watching Mobile Suit Gundam. So, and then are watching everything else in between. And so you have legitimately indoctrinated fans from Gundam Wing that now are into UC that then jump to G Gundam. And to me, this movie wasn't their project. it wasn't their home run that they needed to hit. It was a good movie as far as animation. I just don't get it to the point where I understood the story. I just think it wasn't their best product. And it's not like, well, it's our 17th year in the business or it's our 45th year in the business. I mean, it's your 40th year. You got to hit a home run on your 40th year. And you got to make a statement. I just think they didn't do that. And so, to some degree, I'm disappointed because it's like, this felt Macross. Macross is legitimately written all over this, where it was too much sci-fi and not enough combat and not enough of an actual conflict to exist to make it actually legitly be a sequel to Gundam Unicorn. Because Gundam Unicorn had a legit conflict in it. This did not. And I think that's where the root of the problem lies. If they had a legit conflict and then you had all that new type stuff in there, then I would say, well, maybe it was a little too much of the new type stuff, but there was at least a legit conflict. And there was actually a legit core, and there was something to build off of. Like, I don't know how you build off of this in UC at this point. Because F91 is way beyond this point and in the future. And so we have at least, I think, like 25 to 30 years that they can get another anime in there, and then they can build off of F91 at some point. But this doesn't, like, it just, there's nothing to build off of this. Except the fact that, you know, at the very end, you know, there might be a slight jumping off point. But beyond that, I just don't see it. And to me, you know, they just didn't punch it in. The only cool thing about it is at the end, there's like Gundam Hathaway is coming next winter. So that should be cool. And I don't know too much about that, and I don't want to spoil anything of the little bits and tidbits that I know about that. But, I mean, that kind of helps lessen this. But even still, it's like, I like Gundam, and I'm happy that this movie came out in English. And I'm happy that, you know, I get to talk about it, and it was a decent movie. It's just that I feel that you got 40 years of experience building a Gundam movie. You got to punch this stuff in. I mean, you got Charles Counterattack, you got F91, you got the Gundam 00 movie, you got Endless Waltz. Like, guys, you know how to make a movie, and this was not the way to do it. This was not the way to do it. And if you were going to make this movie, you should have made it off not in your 40th year. You should have made it on your 43rd year, when the hype is a lot less. Because this isn't a punch. This is like a beast thing of a movie where it's annoying and it hurts and you feel it, but you didn't punch it in. You didn't show the best Gundam work out there. And it kind of sucks because it's 40 years and this is the 40th year movie punching in that you got to do it on. And it's also a weird sequel to Gundam Unicorn. If you think about it, I mean, it feels forced to some degree. And so that's really my entire thoughts on it. And I know that I'm going to get some heat for it, and I expect it, and I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to have a Google Hangout with anybody who wants to talk about this, because I think there's a lot of productiveness that can come out of it. I think that also I'm more than happy to talk about it in the comments. You know, I prefer not a thumbs down. If you agree with me, thumbs up all the way. If you disagree with me, you can put a thumbs down too, but tell me why. Because I'm not going to bite anybody's head off, and it's an intellectual discussion, and I talk a lot about Gundam because I present at anime cons, and I have a panel called The Women of Mobile Suit Gundam. I incorporate Gundam into a few other works that I do, and so I'm more than happy to talk about it. I'm not going to bite anybody's hand off or head off. I'm not going to curse, and I hope you don't curse at me. But I like to have intellectual discussions, and I'm hoping that maybe this facilitates one of those intellectual discussions, because I think that everybody can learn from everybody, and if you think I don't have a fair point, you know, let me know. You might convince me, or maybe I can convince you. So feel free to comment down below. I'm more than happy to have a discussion. I'm not a fan of just people disliking something and then not giving a reason, because I like to have conversations. And if you would like to Google Hangout, maybe we can get a few people together and we could have a nice conversation about this, and in particular Gundam in general, over the last 40 years. And I'll throw that out there right now. If you're interested in that, I think my email's somewhere around here, or you could just ask. I'm more than happy to share my email with anybody, and we could set something up and we can maybe make something happen. Because I think that'd be really cool, especially if you disagree with me. Because I like people who disagree with me more than people who agree with me. So yeah, but beyond that, I'm just gonna go through my social media because that's all my thoughts. I do need all the likes and love, or possibly hate that you want to give me. I'll take any of it because I'm very lonely, very lonely. So it's popanimecomics.com is my website where I write about anime, comics, and pop culture. My Twitter is @popanimecomics. My Instagram is popanimecomics. I do Pop Funko stuff all the time on there and comic books and some anime stuff as well. My podcast is the Pop Anime Comics Lounge. I am sponsoring a wrestling event, so if you are in the DC area, go to Nova. It's going to be fun in April. And anything that's Pop Anime Comics is mine, unless I owe you money. And in that case, I don't know you. So that's all I have. And can't wait to hear from everybody. And I know we're approaching 16, almost 16 and a half minutes at this point. So definitely, I'm going to end it right there. And thank you for watching. And let me know what you think, because I really do want to know what people think about this. Don't just give me a thumbs down if you disagree with me. Tell me why. Because that's why I make these videos, and I like to interact with people, and I like to hear your opinions, and everybody here will be respectful, and if somebody's not, I'll just remove their comment. Problem solved. Because we don't need that hate. So, can't wait to hear from everybody, and until next time, everybody, have a wonderful day, week, or seconds till you get to my next video.